The November mist rolled across Highway 52 like a living thing, thick and cold against Daniel Carter's skin as he trudged along the shoulder. His work boots were worn thin, the soles threatening to give out any day now, but new boots weren't in the budget. Nothing was in the budget anymore. It was 6:47 a.m., and he'd been walking for nearly an hour. The Johnson farm was still another 2 miles ahead, where he'd promised to help rebuild their collapsed barn. $75 for a full day's work. It wasn't much, but when you had a 7-year-old daughter to feed and a falling-apart house with no heat, $75 was everything. Daniel's breath came out in white puffs as he walked. The road was empty, as it always was this early. Most people took the interstate now. This old highway had been forgotten just like him. His mind wandered to Emma, his daughter, still asleep back at the cottage. Mrs. Henderson from next door was watching her, as she did most mornings. The elderly woman never asked for payment, just brought over casseroles twice a week and pretended she'd made too much food. That's when he saw it. At first, Daniel thought it was a pile of trash someone had dumped. People did that out here, treating the forgotten highway like their personal landfill. But as he got closer, his stomach dropped. Not trash. Person. "Hey!" Daniel shouted, breaking into a run. "Hey! Are you okay?" The figure didn't move. As Daniel reached the edge of the embankment, the full horror hit him. It was a woman, lying at an awkward angle halfway down the slope. Her clothing was torn and filthy, her face swollen and bruised beyond recognition. Blood had dried in dark streaks across her forehead and neck. Daniel slid down the embankment, his heart pounding. "Ma'am? Can you hear me?" He pressed 2 fingers to her neck, searching desperately for a pulse. They're faint, irregular, but there. She was alive, but barely. The woman's business attire was expensive. He could tell even through the mud and damage. This wasn't some random assault. Her legs were positioned strangely, and that's when he noticed the muscle deterioration visible even through her torn pants. His eyes caught something else, marks in the mud beside her. Distinctive tracks. A wheelchair. Someone had beaten a disabled woman and left her to die on a forgotten highway. Daniel looked around frantically. No cars. No houses visible. His phone had been shut off 2 months ago when he couldn't pay the bill. The nearest working phone was at Mrs. Henderson's house, over a mile back. The woman's breathing was shallow, labored. She didn't have time for him to run for help and wait for an ambulance. The decision took less than 3 seconds. Daniel carefully slid his arms under the woman, cradling her like he used to carry Emma when she was smaller. She weighed almost nothing, her body frighteningly fragile in his arms. "I've got you," he whispered, even though she couldn't hear him. "You're going to be okay. I promise you're going to be okay." The walk back felt endless. His arms screamed, his back burned. The woman's head lolled against his chest, and twice he had to stop just to make sure she was still breathing. The sun was starting to burn through the mist when he finally saw his cottage through the trees. The small, dilapidated building had never looked so beautiful. Daniel kicked open the front door and headed straight for his bedroom, the only room with a working heater. He laid the woman gently on his bed and grabbed the first aid kit from the bathroom. As he cleaned the worst of the blood from her face, he could see she was younger than he'd thought, maybe early 30s. Even with the brutal swelling and bruising, he could tell she had delicate features. This was someone who belonged in boardrooms and galas, not beaten and left to die on a forgotten highway. The defensive wounds on her hands told a story. She'd fought back. The bruises on her arms showed where someone had gripped her hard enough to leave marks. The way her ribs moved when she breathed suggested fractures. This wasn't random violence. This was personal. This was murder. Daniel ran to Mrs. Henderson's house, pounding on her door hard enough to rattle the frame. "Daniel? What on earth? I need your phone. Now, there's a woman. Someone tried to kill her." Mrs. Henderson didn't ask questions. She just handed him her old rotary phone. 911. What's your emergency? I found a woman on Highway 52, about a mile past Miller's Creek. She's been severely beaten, unconscious, appears to have spinal injuries. She needs an ambulance immediately. Daniel gave them all the information he could, vital signs, visible injuries, everything his construction site first aid training had taught him. Sir, we have a major situation on Interstate 70. All available units are responding. Our nearest ambulance is approximately 4 hours away. 4 hours. Understood, Daniel said, his voice hollow. He ran back to the cottage. The woman was exactly as he'd left her. Pale, cold, barely breathing. He pulled a chair beside the bed and checked her pulse every few minutes, talking to her even though she couldn't hear, because the silence felt too much like death. Whoever you are, you're a fighter, I can tell. So just keep breathing, okay? Help is coming. Just keep breathing. An hour passed, then 90 minutes. Daniel's mind raced with possibilities. Who was she? Who had done this to her? Why? And then, at the 2-hour mark, her eyes opened. Daniel leaned forward instantly. Hey, you're safe. You're in my home. Don't try to move. Her eyes were wild, unfocused, searching the room in terror. Please, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Don't let them find me. No one's going to hurt you here. I promise. My chair. The words came in broken fragments. They took my chair, burned it, made me watch. Daniel felt rage coil in his chest. Who did this to you? Jessica, the woman whispered. My sister. She stood there, watching, said father was wrong, said I don't deserve. Her eyes rolled back and she was unconscious again. Daniel sat frozen. A sister. Family had done this. Daniel and Emma returned to County General at 8 a.m. the next morning. Back again. The nurse from yesterday smiled. She's still unconscious, honey, but I bet she'd love to see your drawings when she wakes up. Can I put them in her room? Emma asked hopefully. I think she'd like that very much. Room 307 was private, which told Daniel the hospital had figured out this was a high-profile case. In the proper lighting, he could see the woman more clearly. She was younger than he'd estimated, maybe 32 or 33. Even with the brutal bruising, there was something striking about her. High cheekbones, long dark hair, the kind of face that belonged on magazine covers. Emma carefully arranged her drawings on the wall beside the bed. Then she placed Mr. Trunks on the bedside table. There. Now you won't be lonely. They stayed for 2 hours. Daniel sat in the chair beside the bed, Emma on his lap, both of them reading books in companionable silence. At 11 a.m., Detective Williams appeared in the doorway. Mr. Carter, we have an identification. This situation is significantly bigger than we initially thought. Daniel's stomach tightened. Who is she? Detective Williams pulled out a photograph. Her name is Alexandra Stone. She's the CEO of Stone Industries, one of the largest manufacturing companies in the country, worth about $8 billion. Daniel stared at the photograph, then at Alexandra in the bed. Stone Industries. He knew that name. Everyone did. Her family did this to her? We're investigating, but yes, it appears her stepsister and several board members are involved. Ms. Stone has 65% controlling interest in the company. Certain parties apparently decided her disability made her unfit to lead. Someone had tried to murder her for money, for power. We'll need you to testify when this goes to trial, Detective Williams said. Whatever she needs, Daniel said quietly. Daddy. Emma tugged his sleeve. What's a CEO? It means she's in charge of a very big company, sweetheart. A very important person. But she's hurt so bad. Emma's voice was small. Maybe being important isn't as good as having people who care about you. Daniel pulled his daughter close. You're absolutely right, baby. The next day they came again. And the day after that. On the 4th day, Emma brought a book. Mommy used to read to me when I was sick. Maybe the sleeping lady can hear stories even when she's sleeping. I think she'd like that very much. So Emma read, her 7-year-old voice stumbling over big words, making up silly voices for different characters. Daniel watched and felt something warm unfurl in his chest. Hope, maybe, or just the strange comfort of feeling needed again. On the 5th day, everything changed. They arrived to find room 307 bustling with activity. Doctors, nurses, people in expensive suits. The crowd parted, and Daniel saw her. Alexandra Stone was awake, sitting up in bed, looking pale but unmistakably conscious. Her dark eyes swept the room and landed on Daniel. "You," she said, her voice stronger than he'd expected. "You're the one who found me." "Yes, ma'am. The nurses told me everything. They said you carried me miles, that you saved my life. Anyone would have done the same." "No." Alexandra's voice was firm. "They wouldn't have. Most people would have called 911 and kept walking. Especially once they realized She gestured to her legs. "Once they realized I couldn't walk." "You're not broken," Daniel said before he could stop himself. Their eyes met and held. "Daddy, can I say hi now?" Alexandra's expression softened completely. "Is this your daughter?" "This is Emma." "Hi. Your name is really pretty. It sounds like a princess name." Alexandra's laugh was weak but genuine. "Thank you, Emma. That's very kind. I left Mr. Trunks for you so you wouldn't be lonely." "Did he help?" Alexandra's eyes filled with tears. She reached for the stuffed elephant. "He helped so much. Thank you." A man in a suit cleared his throat. "Miss Stone, we should let you rest." "No. Everyone out. I need a few minutes alone with Mr. Carter and his daughter." The room emptied quickly. Alexandra studied Daniel carefully. "The nurses said you've been here every day. Emma wanted to make sure you were okay." "Why?" Alexandra's voice was soft. "You don't know me." Daniel chose his words carefully. 3 years ago, I lost my wife to cancer. Lost my business to a dishonest partner. Lost everything except my daughter and a cottage that's barely standing. I know what it feels like when the world kicks you when you're down. So when I saw you in that embankment, I wasn't going to be one of those people who walks away. Alexandra's expression shifted. "They tried to kill me," she said quietly. "My stepsister Jessica and 3 board members. They drugged me, drove me out to that highway, and destroyed my wheelchair. Made me watch them pour gasoline on it and light a match." Daniel felt sick. "That's evil." "Jessica said our father was a fool for leaving me control of the company when I can't even walk properly." Alexandra's voice was matter-of-fact, but Daniel saw the pain underneath. "I'd been gathering evidence of their embezzlement for months. They decided to eliminate the problem." "The problem is still here," Daniel said firmly. "Because of you." "Yes." Alexandra's voice dropped to a whisper. "You saved my life, Daniel Carter. I owe you everything." "You don't owe me anything." "Yes, I do. And more than that." She paused. "I don't have anyone. No family I can trust. For 5 days, the only visitors I've had are a stranger and his 7-year-old daughter." Daniel thought about his own isolation since Sarah's death. "Yeah, I understand that feeling." Their eyes met again, and this time the connection was undeniable. "Look, Daddy." Emma pointed excitedly at a monitor. "This shows her heartbeat. It's like a bouncing ball." Alexandra laughed, and the sound transformed her entire face. Daniel found himself smiling too, something warm and unexpected unfurling in his chest. Maybe that morning on the foggy highway had been the start of something neither of them could have predicted. Something that looked a lot like hope. Over the next 3 weeks, Daniel and Emma became fixtures at County General. They visited every day after Emma's school let out. Daniel brought soup and sandwiches. Emma brought endless drawings and stories. Alexandra began to heal. The bruises faded from purple to yellow to gone. She could sit up without wincing. Her mind was sharp, running her company remotely from her hospital bed, giving orders and making decisions that affected thousands of employees. But without her wheelchair, she was trapped. The custom one I had took 8 months to design and build, she explained one afternoon. It was made specifically for my type of injury, my body measurements, my needs. Cost more than most people's annual salary. And they just destroyed it. You're not helpless, Daniel said firmly. You're running an $8 billion company from a hospital bed and building a legal case against people who tried to murder you. That's not helpless. That's remarkable. Alexandra smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. The hospital is discharging me next week. That's good, right? I can't go back to my penthouse, it's a crime scene. I can't go to a facility because Jessica tried to have me involuntarily committed. If I check in anywhere officially, it gives credibility to her claims that I'm unstable. So where will you go? I don't know. Daniel opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again. The offer was crazy, but he remembered that morning, remembered carrying her through the mist, remembered the promise he'd made, and he remembered Sarah's last words. Promise me you'll stay open to love, Daniel. Promise me you'll let yourself live again. Stay with us, he heard himself say. Alexandra blinked. What? The cottage. It's not fancy, it's barely standing, honestly. But there's room. You'd be safe there. Mrs. Henderson has an old wheelchair from when her husband was alive, and I used to be a contractor. I can build ramps, modify things. Daniel, why would you do this? Because when I look at you, I don't see CEO Alexandra Stone. I just see someone who needs help. Someone who deserves kindness. Emma tugged his sleeve. Please say yes, Miss Alexandra. We got lots of room. And Daddy can fix anything. And I'll share my toys. Alexandra's eyes filled with tears. You're a good man, Daniel Carter. I'm just a man who's trying to do the right thing. You're offering a stranger your home. That's extraordinary. You're not a stranger anymore. And he met her eyes. Maybe we can help each other. I've been barely surviving for 3 years. Maybe it's time to try actually living again. She laughed through her tears. Okay, but I'm paying for repairs and helping with expenses. I won't be dead weight. Deal. The next 4 days were a whirlwind. Daniel borrowed Mrs. Henderson's old wheelchair and spent every free hour working on the cottage. He built a ramp, modified the bathroom, created a workspace from reclaimed wood. Mrs. Henderson brought food and blankets. Make her feel like family, she said wisely. The day Alexandra was discharged, Daniel drove to the hospital with Emma bouncing excitedly in the passenger seat. Alexandra was waiting, dressed in simple jeans and a sweater, looking nervous. Ready? Daniel asked. She looked at the old wheelchair, then transferred into it with practiced efficiency. Let's do this. The drive was quiet. When they pulled up to the cottage, peeling paint, sagging porch, but with a new ramp leading to the front door, Alexandra studied it carefully. It's perfect, she said softly. You're a terrible liar. I'm serious. Feels like a home. My penthouse was beautiful, but it never felt like this. Daniel lifted her from the truck, trying not to notice how natural it felt to have her in his arms, trying to ignore how his hands seemed to fit perfectly at her waist. Inside, Alexandra wheeled through each room slowly. She stopped at the desk he'd built. You made this. It's nothing fancy. Daniel. She turned to look at him, her eyes bright. This is the kindest thing anyone has ever done for me. Ever. He didn't know what to say to that. How could that possibly be true? You deserve kindness, he said simply. Their eyes locked, and the small cottage kitchen felt very warm. Then Emma burst in. Miss Alexandra, you're here. Come see my room. I cleaned it and everything. The moment broke, but the warmth remained. The first week was an adjustment period for everyone. Alexandra worked remotely, rebuilding trust with her company while simultaneously building a legal case. Emma appointed herself Alexandra's official helper, counting repetitions during physical therapy exercises and bringing juice at precisely 3 p.m. every day. In the evenings, after Emma went to bed, Daniel and Alexandra would sit in the small living room. They talked about everything: her isolation as CEO, his grief over Sarah, their shared understanding of loss. "People treat you differently when you're in a wheelchair," Alexandra said one night. "They talk slower. They make decisions for you. They act like your disability defines everything about you. That must be exhausting." "It is. But it taught me who's worth keeping in my life." She looked at him meaningfully. "Emma doesn't treat me differently. Neither do you. She's brilliant. Why would I?" "Exactly." Daniel leaned back. "After Sarah died, people stopped calling. They didn't know what to say, so they said nothing. I ended up completely isolated." "I understand that," Alexandra said softly. "After my riding accident, half my friends vanished. I wasn't convenient anymore. Couldn't do spontaneous trips. Couldn't go to most restaurants without advance planning. People got tired of accommodating me." They sat in comfortable silence, two people who'd been abandoned finding understanding in each other. "Can I ask you something?" Alexandra's voice was tentative. "Anything. Why aren't you angry? At the world? At your partner who stole from you? At the unfairness of it all?" Daniel considered carefully. "I was angry. For months I was furious at everything. But then Emma asked me why I was sad all the time. She said her teacher told her that sad daddies can't see happy things anymore." He smiled sadly. "I realized I could either stay angry or look for the good moments. For Emma's sake, I had to choose the good moments. That's survival." "Yeah, but you understand that. You've been surviving your whole life. Building a company, proving yourself, dealing with people who see your wheelchair before they see you. Daniel, I don't think you realize how extraordinary you are. You saved my life. You opened your home. You treat me like a complete person, not a charity case or a burden. That's not extraordinary. That's just being decent. Maybe that's what makes it so rare." Their eyes met and held. Daniel reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. His hand covered hers, and her fingers intertwined with his. They stayed like that for a long time, hands clasped, hearts cautiously opening. The following weeks fell into a comfortable rhythm. Daniel would make breakfast before heading to whatever odd job he'd found. Alexandra would command her empire from the desk he'd built. Emma would come home from school bursting with stories and drawings. One evening, Alexandra insisted on helping with dinner. They worked side by side in the tiny kitchen, and Daniel felt something fundamental shift between them. After dinner and Emma's bedtime, Daniel came downstairs to find Alexandra on the floor doing exercises. "Need a spotter?" he asked. "Always." He sat beside her, counting repetitions. The exercises were clearly grueling, but she pushed herself relentlessly. "Enough," Daniel said finally. "You're going to hurt yourself. One more set." His hand covered hers. "Alexandra, it's enough." She looked at him, breathing hard, then nodded. "Help me up." He lifted her carefully back into the wheelchair, but instead of wheeling away, she stayed close. Her hand came up to rest against his cheek. "Thank you," she said softly, "for not treating me like I'm fragile. You're the least fragile person I know. I feel fragile around you, in a good way, like it's okay to not be strong all the time." Daniel's heart hammered. "Alexandra, I'm falling for you," she said, the words rushing out. "And that terrifies me." "Why?" "Because I've lost everything once. I don't think I could survive losing you too." Daniel covered her hand with his, turning his head to kiss her palm. "You're not going to lose me. You can't promise that." "No. But I can tell you that finding you was the first time in 3 years I felt like my life had purpose. I can tell you that hearing you laugh with Emma makes me happier than I thought possible. I can tell you that when I come home and see you here, I feel like maybe I didn't lose everything. Maybe I just found something different. Something better. Alexandra's eyes filled with tears. That's the most beautiful thing anyone's ever said to me. Then people have been saying the wrong things your whole life. She pulled him closer, and he wrapped his arms around her. They held each other, two broken people discovering that sometimes broken pieces fit together perfectly. The next morning, Emma found them asleep by the fireplace, hands still intertwined. "Daddy," she said loudly, "you're holding hands with Miss Alexandra." Daniel jolted awake. "Good morning, sweetheart. You like her. Like in the movies." Alexandra laughed. "Good morning, Emma. Is it true? Do you like my daddy?" Alexandra looked at Daniel. "Yes, very much. Is that okay with you?" Emma's face split into the biggest smile. "It's the best. Can we have pancakes to celebrate? And can Miss Alexandra be part of our family for real?" As Daniel made pancakes, he watched Alexandra and Emma at the table, talking about nothing and everything. This, he thought, this is happiness. 3 weeks later, Alexandra's new custom wheelchair arrived. A sleek, high-tech marvel that looked like it belonged in a science fiction movie. "It's like a spaceship," Emma exclaimed. But before Alexandra could transfer to it, Emma appeared with a sheet of butterfly stickers. "For good luck." Alexandra looked at the expensive chair, then at the little girl and smiled. "You're absolutely right. Where should we put them?" 20 minutes later, the sleek black wheelchair was covered in sparkly butterflies. December arrived with snow and difficult news. The trial was set for February. Alexandra would have to return to Chicago for depositions and court appearances. "I have to go back," she said one evening. "I know. Come with me." Daniel looked up sharply. "What? You and Emma? Come to Chicago? I have a house there. 4 bedrooms, huge yard, excellent schools." Alexandra rushed on. "And Daniel, my company needs a new head of operations for our manufacturing division. You built a successful construction company. You understand project management, logistics, budgets. You're exactly what I need." "Alexandra, I can't accept charity." "It's not charity. You're qualified. And more than that." Her voice softened. "I'm in love with you, Daniel Carter. Being separated from you these past few weeks has been torture. I don't want to do this apart. I want us together. As a family." Daniel felt like the world had tilted. "You love me?" "Yes, you idiot. I love you. I love your daughter. I love this cottage and your determination to fix everything. I love that you see me as a whole person. I love." He kissed her, cutting off the words. When they broke apart, they were both crying. "I love you too," he whispered. "I didn't think I could feel this way again. So come with me, not as charity but as my partner. In business and in life. What about this place? Keep it. Use it as a weekend retreat. But Daniel, don't trap yourself here. Sarah would want you to live." He thought about Emma, who deserved better opportunities. About the future he could build with Alexandra if he was brave enough to take the leap. "Can I think about it?" "Of course." But Emma, who had been eavesdropping from the hallway, had different ideas. "Daddy, please say yes. Miss Alexandra's house probably doesn't have holes in the roof. And I really want us to be a proper family." Daniel looked at his daughter's hopeful face, then at Alexandra's careful optimism, and felt something inside him finally break open. Maybe it was time to stop just surviving. "Yeah," he said. "Yeah, let's do it." Emma shrieked. Alexandra's face transformed with joy, and Daniel felt, for the first time in 3 years, like the future held promise. Daniel stood in his new office on the 12th floor of Stone Industries headquarters, looking out at the Chicago skyline. Behind him, the door opened. "Mr. Carter, you have a visitor," his assistant said with a knowing smile. Alexandra wheeled in, looking every inch the CEO in a sharp blazer, her butterfly sticker-covered wheelchair somehow making her look even more formidable. "Hey, stranger. Lunch?" Daniel grinned. "The boss is asking me on a date? Consider it a performance review." He kissed her, long and deep, and she laughed against his mouth. The trial had concluded 2 months ago. Jessica and the board members were convicted, facing decades in prison. Alexandra had restructured Stone Industries completely, implementing accessibility initiatives that Emma had inspired during one of her helping sessions. The company was thriving, but Daniel knew the real story wasn't about a CEO reclaiming her empire. It was about 2 broken people who found each other on a forgotten highway and chose to build something beautiful from the wreckage. At lunch, Alexandra pulled out a small box. Daniel's heart stuttered. "What's this?" Inside was a ring. Simple, elegant, designed specifically not to interfere with wheelchair use. "Marry me," Alexandra said. "Build a life with me. Not because I saved you or you saved me, but because we choose each other. Every single day." Daniel couldn't speak. He just nodded until she laughed, and then he kissed her while the restaurant erupted in applause. That evening, when they picked up Emma from school, she saw the ring and screamed with joy. "We're going to be a family, a real family. We already are, sweetheart," Daniel said, lifting his daughter up while holding Alexandra's hand. "We've been a family since that morning in the mist." That night, sitting in their living room, Alexandra asked, "Do you ever think about that morning?" "Every day. If you'd left 5 minutes earlier, if the fog had been thicker. But I didn't, and you didn't die. The universe gave us both a second chance," Alexandra said softly. "You'd lost everything. I'd been betrayed and left for dead. We were both broken. And broken things can be rebuilt," Daniel finished, "into something even stronger." He knelt beside her chair and pulled out his own ring. Simple gold with coordinates inscribed inside. The exact location where he'd found her. "I loved Sarah. Part of me always will. But loving you doesn't diminish that. You're not a replacement. You're exactly who I'm meant to be with right now. And I want to spend the rest of my life choosing you. Will you marry me?" She was crying and nodding. "Yes, of course yes." Outside, snow began to fall. Daniel understood something fundamental then. Life isn't about the disasters. It's about what you choose to do after. It's about the people you find in the wreckage, the hands you hold in the darkness, the love you build from broken pieces. 3 years ago, he'd lost everything. 6 months ago, he'd found a woman dying on a forgotten highway. Today, he had a family, a career, a future filled with love. And tomorrow held even more. Sometimes the greatest treasures aren't found when you're searching. Sometimes they're discovered when you simply stop to help someone else. When you choose compassion over convenience. When you see past the broken exterior to the fighting spirit underneath. Daniel Carter had found Alexandra Stone on the worst day of her life. But really, they'd found each other. And in finding each other, they'd found themselves again. That was the real miracle. Not the survival, not the rescue, not even the love story. It was the reminder that no matter how broken you are, no matter how dark things seem, there's always a chance for something new. Something beautiful. Something worth fighting for. You just have to be brave enough to reach for it when it appears. Unexpected, impossible, and absolutely perfect.